talking about forced retirement for baby boomers. And so I know it's going to take a little bit for people to come in here, but we're talking about forced retirement for baby boomers, which forced retirement is that where, I mean, I don't know how they qualify this, because this means that a baby boomer, well, a person, it doesn't have to just be a baby boomer. You've worked for a company for 30, 40 years and you still need to work because you got a mortgage, you got bills to pay, you need to eat. Now we've got inflation. Now the boss comes in and wants to get rid of you. Well, how is the boss going to do that? How is the boss going to get rid of you? I mean, we have anti-discrimination laws, which you'd have to be able to prove that you were discriminated because of your age. Well, and technically, in a roundabout sort of way, you could say if you're a baby boomer and you're forced out of your job because you're a baby boomer, that's discrimination. That's what this one kid was talking about. He said that people from the ages of, I think he said 61 to 79 is classified as baby boomers. And Generation X also fits in there a little bit too. And so, because I know the tail end baby boomers often fit more in with Generation X, they're not as stuffy as the actual baby boomer generation is in many senses. And so people still need to work. We have inflation. People still have mortgages. So how in the world, okay, you're asking baby boomers to take off of work. They have no money saved at all. Yeah, you got single women who have no way to take care of theirself. And so you're forcing people out of jobs. Now, with the gig economy on the internet, apparently they can, everybody's always said, well, gosh, by the time you're 35 years old in Hollywood, you're washed up. Nobody's interested in you anymore. Well, it sounds like that's what they did was go behind the scenes. Hello, Alaya Miljan goes. Hello. Do you have a question you'd like to ask? I was just talking about baby boomers. You're welcome to ask a different question. If you have a question you'd like to ask, like, do you have anything you could? That's not a question. So we're talking about baby boomers. Hello, Absol and Elijah Milan. Okay, you're the same person. Do you have a question? And so people who are baby boomers or elderly then are forced out of jobs because they force the people out of the job. They want to bring in someone else and hire them for a cheaper price. And it's likely that these companies are recognizing right about now maybe that they've been paying people too much money. Because I kind of noticed that, like with my ex, when I was married to him, that the jobs that he had actually had kind of tiered down with the wages. And when I say tiered down, each consecutive job he was paid less money, even though he still had a house. He still had a house payment to make. And up until the point that he did lose his last job. And so there was no consideration related to how he would pay for the house. And I know there's a lot of people on the internet who often make this reference of don't put all your eggs in one basket. Okay, you're back. I don't recall seeing you before, but I am glad you're back to watch. Elijah Mijangos. And so they tell people not to put all their eggs in one basket. They need to have this multiple sources of revenue and income. Well, that's a scam, because most normal people in real life, they have one job. If they lose that job, they don't have another source of income. So the financial institutions are full of shit. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. The financial institutions are full of shit. Because they want things to work for them, and they tend to not include everybody else, and so they're basically multi-level marketing. And even on YouTube, I was told from the beginning when I was a YouTube partner, I was told, oh, you've got to have multiple sources of revenue, and YouTube is not a real job, which for many it turns out to be. Unless you can get in on that revenue stream, it turns out that it could be true, or maybe funding has been pulled back for some reason. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is. We had the adpocalypse, so I think funding was pulled back, but I'll never know for sure. I can only speculate. And so right now it's really challenging to get funding. And so people who lose their jobs then in real life, then they're turning to the internet. They want to go to the internet. They need to find another source of income. They still have rent to pay, house payments to make. And so everybody's in a world of hurts because prices are so gall darn high, and there's like no solution into helping the prices go down lower. And during COVID, they just price gouged. And none of these governors had the spine to push back against Wall Street. None of them had the spine to push back against the president, either president at all. None of them pushed back against, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders seem to be the only two people. Sometimes I think that we might be able to get more problems solved if we had Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders as co-presidents or something like that. Some days I wish we could have a co-president, where we had a male and a female together as president instead of vice president and president. That way, if we had two presidents, just think of the checks and balances that we would have if we had two presidents. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, that sounds like the dumbest idea I've ever heard. We have enough trouble with one president as it is. However, if we have two presidents, then I think it adds a safety layer of checks and balances of two presidents, where one president can't just go off and do things. And so imagine if two presidents had to agree on executive orders. Imagine that. If you had a team of presidents, maybe we do like a Supreme Court and we have a team of presidents, not just one. Let's say we have 9 presidents. That could be a very interesting idea and put in a big layer of checks and balances. So instead of one president, we have 9 presidents, like the Supreme Court. And then in order for them to implement anything, they all have to agree on it together. And so that means they can't just do things by themselves and make a big mess of things. And so they have to do things for the people who they are working for, which is the American public. And so when I think about this, like related to Congress and stuff like that, we don't have just one politician. We have multiple politicians, and we can actually contact other politicians in the same sense. Maybe I need to clip this. Okay, so what did I say? My idea is to have multiple presidents, anywhere from 2 presidents to 9 presidents as a checks and balance. Okay, I need to clip this. Alrighty, yay! I'm finally getting my 60-second shorts going on now. And that's so nice that I'm getting my 60-second, well, they're not 60 seconds, they're 49-second shorts is what I'm getting. It's fun. It's kind of fun to get an odd number too, because you know how usually we get an even number, well, I call 15 seconds is an odd number, but it's a popular number. So 15 seconds is more popular than, say, 17 seconds or 13 seconds. Oh, 13 seconds actually would be kind of interesting, because if you think about it, now I know with gambling and stuff like that, they've always used, they have a thing where they've used lucky number 13. But then they said the rich people didn't like the number 13. So, for some reason, I don't know why, they just said rich people don't like the number 13. And they said a lot of times they wouldn't even include a 13th floor when they built their buildings. And so they would just skip on over it. But I have a feeling that the 13th floor could have been a service room, maybe, or a storage area, or an elevator, possibly, or not an elevator shaft, but a storage room of some sort of place where they couldn't stop at. And so if that's what they were doing, then maybe that's why they didn't have a 13th floor. Okay, so hi, why I never get a shout out. I'm not giving you a shout out. I'm not giving you a shout out. um, no, I'm just not gonna do it. Um, I know you think that's funny. Yeah, I see you finally got that name to come through. I'm not giving you a shout out because too many people don't like that word, and I'm just not gonna do it. It's not something that's that important to me. I've explained why. I've explained this for the past 4 years or more now. I've been talking about it for a long time. I just don't think it's something that is that important for me. And besides, didn't Reverend Al bury that word? Reverend Al Sharpton and Oprah Winfrey buried that word. I'm tired of the word. I don't want to hear it. I just don't. It's not important to be in my vocabulary. It's not important to be on the internet. And so I just don't need to use that word. I mean, I just don't want to use it. I'm making a personal choice to not use that word. Wait a minute. You know what? Maybe I can say it in a little different way. Um, uh, like not Nija, like Nigel or Niagara Falls, Niagara Falls, Nija. Is that? I mean, I just say it in a nice way, Nija, or I guess it just depends on how it comes out of your mouth and how people perceive it. But Nija, uh, JSHA, Nija. Okay, is that good enough for you? So I don't say it in such a way that violates someone's sensibilities and their perception of what certain color objectifications are, because we know that there's some people who objectify certain colors for certain purposes and for their Neanderthal activism. Hello, nobody. My nobody called today. They hung up when I asked their name. Right? Nobody has. Oh, it's just nobody. Nobody's on the other end. Yeah, nobody's on the other end. That's what I'm just a nobody. That's what I am, is just a nobody. Everything I have to say just doesn't count for anything. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Or even, the things that really happened where someone should be in prison. And I'm not talking about the president. The person, GP is a good boy. Who is GP? I don't know who GP is. Oh, the person. GP is the person. I'm not sure who GP is, because I don't know who any of you are. And so, oh, GP is the best streamer. Yeah, I don't know who GP is as far as a streamer goes. Alright, I have looked at a lot of streamers, and I look at things that they do, and I thought you knew me from yesterday. I do remember Nobody. I do recognize the chat name Nobody. But you guys tend to play a lot of this thing where you switch people behind your accounts, and then you get another account and then you'll ask where so and so is. That's what you guys do. I've seen it going on entirely too much. So you'll say, "Oh, well, where is somebody? Somebody was in here yesterday. Now nobody is in here today." Well, then you come back as nobody, and it's like, "Well, where is somebody? Somebody was here yesterday. Now nobody is here, and now nobody is gone." And then somebody is saying, "Well, where is nobody? Nobody was here. Where's nobody at?" And then somebody is actually nobody. Remember the toe suck? Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. I do remember you're talking about the toe jam? Because I said you would have to give me 24 hours to think about it, what you were talking about. I looked through my videos, because I've been looking through my old videos, because I have quite a few of them I can repurpose. I have a really good collection of videos. I'm willing to add more videos into my collection so I can get more views, So me, I'm actually really focused on adding to my collection of videos for the purposes of getting views. And so, yes, you're talking about toe jam. I think you're talking about the toe jam, right? Nobody, what are you doing? Are you talking about the toe jam? You retracted your message, nobody. Okay, so, yes, he was asking about sucking on toes, and I said, and it's like I knew there would be something that would come up, and it's the toe jam. It's got to be the toe jam. And so I actually have an old video that's not getting a lot of views about toe jam and sucking on toes. And, unless he was talking about sucking on a tow truck. Like, why would someone suck on a tow? Oh, lick a tow truck. So if you're talking about licking a toe, as in licking a tow truck, then that would be a little bit different. But a person wouldn't actually be married to a tow truck, would they? I don't think they'd be married to a tow truck. Because they used the analogy and said, "Oh, well, what if it was your best buddy and you were married to this guy and you really liked him a lot?" This is what they asked me yesterday. "Would you suck on his toes?" At first I said no, and then I changed it to yes. I said, "Well, yeah, why not? If his toes are really clean and we wash them up really good, I might do it. If it's somebody that I really, really like, I might do it." And I said I might do it without his toes even being washed, because of the fact that I really like this person a lot. And but at the same time, I said, this fetish sounds really, really weird. It really does sound weird. But I actually think that when my dog was a puppy, I think I licked his toes on camera. I think I did, but I'm not positive. I don't remember, because I know I was doing some silly things, and I was doing some silly things, and so I think I might have licked my dog's toes, knowing full well he walks outside and poops sometimes, and he might pee on his feet, but I did lick his toes, and I didn't give him a bath before I licked his toes either, because I started thinking about a lot of things where he goes over and he drinks out of a mud puddle, and any other dog could have shit near that mud puddle, and or peed or something like that, and I started thinking, well, he drinks some really rank, nasty water, and he'll go drink out of a pond or sitting water or something like that, and all animals do, and they don't actually get sick. Maybe they do sometimes, and so yeah. It's all jokes. What's all jokes? Oh, nobody, you came back. I know it's jokes. Everything I'm doing right now pretty much is jokes for the most part. Except for there is some real life things that I still do from time to time. But the majority of what I've been doing right now is jokes. I'm not even sure if I can get... there's some other things that I want to do, but I'm not sure if they're going to go up. I do have some things that kind of push some limits coming up, but it's absolutely nothing that would be it's intended to be taken out of context, but it's still pretty mild, though. It's really mild. However, there's some inferences of location of certain things, but you guys will just have to wait and see. So I've got a bunch of scheduled videos for the next month. I've got a month worth of scheduled videos with multiple more videos coming out in between in that month at different time frames. Typically, I upload a lot of videos at 6 a.m. in the morning. 6 a.m. in the morning is my sweet spot. Maybe I should do 6 p.m. at night, but I've been doing 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and then 12 a.m. in the morning. Those are the three that I've been doing. Ding, dang, yeah, ding, dang, dong. Um, and and so I do at least 3 videos. I try to do 3 shorts a day, but I have a lot of videos that I have pre-recorded. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about once, you know, I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about once I have no life and no person in my life to talk about things with, because of the fact that I'm boring. I am very, very boring by myself. And so, I'm trying really, it's never been my intention to hurt people if I say things. And that's why I avoid using names, except for real people that are doing stuff that is harmful to me. And that has been happening in the past 3 years. And so there is mixed reality in with what I have been talking about. So we can't say that all of it is fake, even though I know you guys want to push the ideology that everything is fake. Let's see what nobody says. You're not boring. Don't say things like that. You have to talk positive about yourself. Okay. Well, I'm hot and sexy, and I think that eventually I'm going to meet myself some hot attorney. I don't know why I want him to be attorney, but I think that being married to an attorney would be fun. Or not just, well, no, marriage is pushing it too early. You love that? You love that? You love that? Okay. Yeah, I'm hot and sexy. I'm hot, I'm sexy, I'm hot, I'm sexy, and I know it. I'm hot and sexy, and I know it. I always wanted to be a lawyer. I did too. I wanted to be a lawyer too. I did. I thought it would be fun to argue. And I liked the idea of the word argue, because it wasn't like arguing. When I listen to lawyers, it's like their arguments are so boring. It's like they're not yelling and screaming at each other like mom and dad yell and scream at each other. Now, thankfully, I do have memories from the past to think about and use. And that's what I use a lot of the times, especially the mom and dad stuff. And so when I think about that, I always compared, when I thought of Marcia Clark, I was thinking they called what she was doing an argument, but she sounded so boring and she was so monotone. And it was like, I mean, the thing I remember about Marcia Clark is like if she was a robot, she'd be talking like this, and it's very boring, like a Catholic priest who sings the service. Okay, so yeah, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer too, but I had no idea how to even be a lawyer because it was too expensive. And now I'm past my heyday with that. So I think my lawyer days and my joining the army days are probably over with. So I mean, I just like to kind of tell the truth and say, like other people say, well, your days of being a lawyer and joining the army are over with. Even though my son recently told me in the past couple of years that I could always work in the ditches or drive a big rig truck why he would have tell me to do that, which is not something I'm really interested in doing. But he thinks that I can do all that stuff, or be a tow truck driver or something like that, having had absolutely no experience. So it was kind of like he was guiding me in that direction because it sounds like the money is really good. Now my speed would have been more like driving an Amazon truck. I could drive an Amazon truck. I don't want to drive my own vehicle for delivery service because that's wear and tear on my vehicle, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do that. So just like jobs tend to dismiss people for whatever reasons, because the truth of the truth is, and that, like the guy that he's kind of disappeared, the guy that I was always saying on YouTube, and the truth is jobs just don't have enough slots to put everyone on the payroll of someone else. And so, yeah, I just, I don't know at this point. Um, so I think law school, doesn't it take like 6 years? Do you know about that? Nobody? Do you have any idea? Because I know I don't. I heard that law school was many, many years. But right now, I've been thinking about that, and I thought, how in the world could you just put these, how many years is law school? Do you know? How many years is law school to become an attorney? I mean, and how do you pass the, I always heard that passing the bar was, I don't know either. I always heard that passing the bar was really, really hard. And that they said that most people fail it at least 2 times, and then a lot of times they'll pass on the third try. So I don't know, maybe, oh gosh, you know what I never thought? I thought maybe that is something tied into getting used to losing. The truth be told, I'm a 2-time felon. Oh, well, I have heard that there are felons who have become politicians, and there are felons who have become lawyers. So, in order to have an understanding of the legal side of things, don't you have to go through the process of of what it would be like in the footsteps and shoes of a person who is experiencing things like that? I mean, you would have to have real world, real life experience. And so I've never heard of a homeless person being a politician or a lawyer. I've never heard of a rags to riches story of a politician being a lawyer or a politician. I've never heard of that. Oh, I've heard of a few people who said they were homeless that I think they were politicians, but right now it looks like most of them are affluent. Ha, that's hilarious. In order to be a cop, you need to be a robber first. Exactly. Absolutely. In order to be a cop, you have to be a robber first. Yeah, well, but you know what? Let me tell you something. In order for cops to have training, you have to have robbers who are actors role playing being the robbers so the cops can train. Because what if you're having a really good day in America and no crimes are taking place? So it's sort of like the premise of the show of Andy Griffith. And so Barney was like so sad because he didn't have anybody to put in jail. And so in Mayberry RFD, day after day after day would go by, and Barney was so sad because he had nobody to put in jail. They had a jail, nobody was there. So they got this local drunk guy from town to come and stay in their jail, so it looked like they had a reason to be there, I guess. And so they had a guy. I think that he might have been married. I'm not sure, but they let him bring in a couch and a blanket, and so he'd just lock himself up in jail during the day. Every day he'd lock himself up in jail, so when people came in, they would have someone behind bars, and so it created a reason for them to be there. So if they didn't have anybody in jail, then they had no reason for the cops. It made them, it got them to thinking like, well, why do we have a jail here if we can't put anybody in jail? And, but at the same time, then they're putting people in jail that they know that they really maybe shouldn't be putting in jail. And then, of course, Andy was a huge conflict of interest because Andy was the sheriff and he was the judge. Andy Griffith was the sheriff and the judge. And so Andy says, I can just do whatever I want to do. I'm the sheriff and I'm the judge. He never talked, not once did that man ever talk about a conflict of interest. And this is where I want to raise the issue related to the state of Georgia and Governor Brian Kemp and a conflict of interest, where you have a Secretary of State who oversees elections. And Stacey Abrams, in all fairness, she did bring this up. It's kind of lost sight out of media right now, but it's like the politicians are always bringing up huge conflict of interest. Now, I'm the type of person who's going to get out a piece of paper, and so I'm going to write things on a piece of paper, but it's like, well, where do I send this piece of paper to show potential conflict of interest? Now, one of the biggest, I think, that's most important right now, they are addressing is insider trading, Congress and insider trading. And I find it so ironic because it's like I started calling up my politicians talking about insider trading and them being used for insider trading. Maybe it's something, I mean, they would have had to have heard from it from other people before, maybe, I'm not sure. But I was talking about it on video too, on my other YouTube channel. And so I said, what I started saying was, okay, people want to know why things are rigged. So it's like you got to follow the money. We follow the money. We look at Congress. They hold the purse strings. Everything they do, the people on TV, the people on Wall Street, brokerage companies are watching Congress to see the direction of where this country is going. And so they're getting guidance from Congress. Now, a lot of Congress people are involved with media. They're married to them sometimes in many instances, like Greenspan and Andrea Mitchell. They were married while Alan Greenspan was the Fed chair, which to me it's like that sort of would be a little bit of conflict of interest because then Andrea Mitchell would have a clickbait moment to have a release of potential pillow talk information in advance of the Fed chair meeting. However, I'm not sure that the interest rates then would actually trigger early sell-offs. That's what would happen. The Fed chair, if he told his wife what was going on, then that could trigger early sell-offs. So if Andrea Mitchell actually told some people what her husband told her in confidence, and he slipped up and he told her what direction that the interest rates were going to go up or down, or then that could have some potential triggers on Wall Street where the institutions are either selling off or they're buying, maybe. Who knows? But at the same time, every single politician, every last one of them, when they vote, they hold the power of money and which direction that money is going to go. So when they give grant money, so like, for example, today, I read an article that said Elon Musk was given like $26 billion. He wasn't given, it sounded like they said they were going to give him 400 billion, but they cut back the amount. And they said they cut back the amount of money that they were giving him for his company. So it sounds like they're losing faith in him. So it sounds like they want him to actually give the money, maybe that he has to give the money to his shareholders. So it's almost like Elon Musk is being bailed out by the taxpayers and he has to give the money. That's how I read the article. Now, other people didn't hear about this story. I had asked other people if they heard about the Elon Musk story, and they were all saying no. But it was just a little article on the internet, and it said he had been given a certain amount of money. And so they said something about that his stock was going to be like $6.90 a share. And so I don't know what Tesla is right now, but it said something about that he is supposed to give each one of his shareholders the money. And so it sounded like the they gave him grant money to sell to it sounds like they might be requesting that he divest, possibly. I'm not sure, but that's kind of how I took it. And he wanted more money. He wanted up there around the 400 billion mark, but they only gave him 26 billion. So it sounds like he owes some people some money or something like that. So they had to give him grant money, which means he doesn't have to pay it back, but he's supposed to give the money to his shareholders. He doesn't get to keep the money. And so the thing I was just thinking, though, is now whoever did this, say that they would have had insider information about this grant money. They could have told someone else, which meant that they could have pushed up, institutions could have bought into Tesla, pushed it up, and in anticipation for this grant money. But, since it wasn't widely known, I don't imagine that probably took place. And so that's why I say, so there's places other than Congress that put out money for companies. I just found that's kind of odd, though, that he would get grant money, for his company. If they're calling it grant money, something is wrong with his company. Or he's losing money, and so unless he's the Ponzi scheme, is that the possibility that Elon Musk is the Ponzi scam? And he took money that he can't pay back to his investors? I don't know. And so he got a bailout from the American taxpayers through a grant program. So he's involved with Donald Trump. He didn't get as much money as he wanted, but I'm thinking 26 billion. That's what it's. I think it was 20 something billion, like 26 billion maybe, or something like that. It was a lot of money. It wasn't million, but it was billion. So Elon Musk got a lot of money, and so. It sounds crazy. So there's people in there who are making sure that some of these companies are propped up with money going to them. And I was thinking that the grant underwriting, they would also be insiders. Grant underwriting, when they can just give out billions and billions of dollars. My gosh. That would be something that Congress needs to address as well, because then the grant writing people become insiders. So if they know that they're going to have a grant, they may not know that they have the grant approved. And it can take a while for a grant to be approved. But then now Elon Musk is on Wall Street. Grant money is free. And I've often thought, gosh, I can't just go to the government and say, I want a couple of $1 million, and then I'll just do some experiments, and I'll do work for free on the internet. I can't do that, even though there's been ladies on the internet who have said that. They've actually said that. They said, and they were on YouTube as well. They were on the live streams. They said that they just applied for grant money, and they got it. They said they went to USA Gov and applied for grant money, and they got it. And they said they were an individual business. And I was thinking, I don't know how they did that. Because I had looked at that before, and But it does sound like a lot of people are actually, well, the thing that I looked at was that you have to be a company. You have to be some kind of a company. They wouldn't accept just individual people. So you could apply if you were a school or something like that. A school, that makes sense. But you couldn't just be an individual person. Now, these two ladies were saying, oh, well, we're just individual people. We applied for grant money and we got it. But it has me wondering, it's like, well, yeah, maybe you're school teachers or something like that, and you're not telling the full truth. Is that a possibility? Yes, it's always a possibility. That So you guys think I should get married to a lawyer? So if I can't actually become a lawyer, I should get married to a lawyer or a retired lawyer? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? I'm not sure that a lawyer would actually like me that well. Um, because they like to keep things private. And, like, as long as I'm on the internet, I'm not a very private person. I mean, I've told a lot of things about myself. Sometimes I make up little stories about myself too, just to talk about myself in third person. So um, when I say that I would lick toe jam off of some guy's toes, that's kind of making up a story a little bit, isn't it? Um, it could be. Okay, it says there's two people watching. And that's what I was thinking. Yeah, if the cops, oh, yeah, I thought more about that, what nobody said. Yeah, if the cops want to keep their jobs, they really need more criminals. They need, they need more, so I went through that whole thing about Andy Griffith. Yeah, that's the whole point. If they want to keep their jobs, they got to have lots and lots of criminals. Yeah, or they may not be able to justify as many police officers as they have if they don't have as much criminals. I mean, now the people who are implementing initiating the money for police jobs, eventually someone might catch on. I mean, because we are talking about it in public, and so eventually they might catch on that um, some of the criminals could be fake. Maybe I'm not sure. Because I can't prove who would be a fake criminal and who would be a real criminal. That's the problem. I can't prove who would be fake and who would be real. I can't prove who would be um what's the word I'm looking for? Who would be an entertainment criminal? Because there's so many things that are mixed within our media. And I always thought, well, that's the great and fun thing about artwork, artistic work, and expanding into the internet is prompting our brain in another direction. Because I know a lot of people felt threatened, or that's how I felt. I started feeling that way, especially with the space agencies. And I was thinking, that they're like the UFO people. Some of them had expressed, they're like, well, what about the stories? And it's like, well, it's like you guys can still tell your stories, even if we figure out what you've done and that some of it is fake. It's like nobody cares. It's like you can still tell your stories because the government has their counterintelligence program. And the thing is, the truth is, here we go again with that. Here, the truth is, we don't know what is real and what isn't real because the government, I think, this is my theory only, and I don't know for sure, but the government has counterintelligence for some reason. And I think that the purpose of that is as a decoy related to security, national security, and the safety of the president. I think that's what all that's about. Safety of the president and high figures in the United States who need to have safety. I just didn't realize that the internet would cause problems for um, local YouTubers who are nobodies. And it really shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't. Um, so something else in that sense is going on when that happens. And a lot of people have said, gosh, when you have things like that happen, you're on the right path. And it's like, no, you're not on the right path. No, you're not on the right path, because when you have people calling the police on you, yeah, well, yes, maybe you're on the right path. You have someone attacking you because they're trying to take you out of a new form of media. I agree with that part, but it's like it's not worth it to the point of being harassed. Having someone harass you, that part is not worth it. It's just not. And so that's why I've thought, well, the AI side of things right now could be kind of fun. And if I ever in the future get into a relationship with someone, then I'm not public. I'm not a public figure anymore. And then that means that maybe I can still do what I'm doing a little bit from time to time, and it's not going to get in the way of a relationship. And, so I'm not a public figure, and then it's not taking up a lot of my time. And then I would have time to spend with someone that maybe really likes me in the future, you know. And so I haven't completely given up on that yet, but right now it's not something that I'm actively pursuing. And it's especially not going to be something that I pursue with migrants. No, that's just not going to happen. Absolutely no way, Jose. It ain't going to happen. So, um, I mean, I can't force, right now, I can't even force the government to help me with things that I need help about, that they had made promises that they were supposed to help the American public with. And so now there's another issue that's really important I wanted to address right now. So there's this guy, he sounds like he's from another country, and he's raising the point about, he said baby boomers are in trouble. I think that's what I started out talking about on this video, was he said baby boomers are in trouble because of the fact that they are losing their jobs. And so I kind of was thinking about that, and I thought, well, yeah, he's right. And I left a response for him, and what I said is, well, um, and he said, and this affects future generations too. And I wrote and I told him, I said, well, I've been homeless for 3 years and I'm a baby boomer. And so this is going to affect future generations too. So it might be something that you guys want to think about. I'm homeless now, which means the future generations from now on, because of inflation and the direction this country is going, is going to affect future generations. So this is something that is a now issue, a now crisis issue. It's not a let's put it off and kick the can down the road. We can't do this anymore. It's not sustainable. And a lot of us on the internet, and a lot of us on the internet, I'm going to say, legacy media doesn't seem to want to help us. A lot of us on the internet have taken a lot of punches and a lot of hard times because of this, and we've gotten knocked out because of this. And we're talking about real issues. But then we get met with a lot of people who say, oh, it's all fake, it's not real. And it's like, what's not real? You guys are living in mansions. People from Hollywood are living in mansions. Other people have houses. But there's still another element of American citizens who are homeless and don't have homes. And these people are speaking out. I'm getting them every day now. Every day I'm getting senior citizens who have been priced out of the United States. There's one young man who's about 40 years old. And what he's saying on his video is, he said the United States of America is too expensive for him to live in. And it's like, I agree with you, but where are we supposed to go? I mean, leaving the country is not realistic. Most people don't want to leave the United States where we grew up, and we don't want to go someplace else. Where would we go? Because no other country is going to take us. We only have a few options, which is contacting our elected officials. Now, what I will say is I did see a little blurb on TV. There was a story about these Texas Democrats who left the state, and they said Greg Abbott is a lawyer, and so he decided he's going to send some Homeland Security after them to arrest every last one of them. So I don't know where they went to, but for some reason they all left the state, and Greg Abbott has deployed Homeland Security or some type of marshals and police to go after the Democrats to arrest every one of them from his state. He said all the Democrats left his state and went someplace else. And so he said he's going to have every one of them arrested and bring them all back to Texas. So it should be interesting to see how this plays out, even if it is a stunt. Some people say it's a stunt, others say that it's not a stunt. I have no idea because I've never been involved with any of that. So I have no idea what is stunts and what isn't stunts. So because there's always people who say, oh, politics is all fake. Every last bit of it is fake. Well, I do see some theatrics within politics. I do see some from time to time. When they have when they're having a hearing and they're talking about abortion rights and things like that, and then they have all these women come in. Oh, even the Palestine ones. That one just seems to go way overboard all the time. Palestine goes overboard all the time. And and the thing I've read about that is they said Gaza has not had any power for 21 months now. They have no power, and so I'm confused as to what's going on there. If they have no power, that means there's no people there, or everyone is gone. The full truth of what's going on there has not been coming out related to Gaza. And with the people, I mean, they probably had to be pushed someplace else in the area. I don't know. So it's like one war ends and then another war and hotspot picks up someplace else, and it's like, they don't want to have peace. Why should we keep fighting something that's someone else's battle all the time? That's tiring. I'm tired of fighting someone else's battle. I mean, I can't even get the help I need for my own self. And, so I try to stay focused and, and just, I really would like my life back. I'd really like to have a place to live. And, did you guys know another thing too? It costs around $70,000 to replace a whole household. So if you put a person into an apartment, then they have to buy everything all new again. And when I say new, it's new to them. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be brand new with a brand new price. But I think what they're saying is if you were to purchase everything new, it would be about $70,000 to replace everything you lost. And so, so for people who are homeless and people who have been displaced, and it's like there's and I think they're talking about FEMA now, people who have been displaced because of the lack of help for people and prices being so inflated and high. Well, where are people supposed to get the money from? I mean, because there's no insurance to help people. There's no insurance related to, well, if you get divorced, there's no insurance to help a woman who needs help, when she's getting a little bit, she might be getting a little bit of alimony or money from her ex-husband, but the houses are so expensive. Oh, this is another video. I'm going to tell you guys about this too. I watched another guy. He was carrying on, and he made a lot of sense. What he was saying is that he said that the housing market, the houses have not sold. He said the prices are so high. They sat on the market for a long time. Nobody bought them. So he said they just pulled them off the market. And so he's talking about an impending collapse in the housing market. Well, he said that if the prices go down a little bit, then he said then people are just going to start buying houses. Now, the thing I was thinking about though too with that is I asked him the question if he knew who owned the houses because I was just thinking an individual person who owns a house, they might just move back into the house if they can't sell it. They might just move back into the house instead of trying to sell it. So what he was suggesting is that the prices are so high, the other people, they can't sell their house to move. Well, but he keeps talking about making money and an investment in the house. That's the only thing that they talk about is making money as an investment. So my thought is looking at it a different way as in an investment for you just to have a place to live. Not that you're going to make money on the house, because what I think about is my mom and dad, when they bought their house, my mom had told me, she said they took out a loan for about $30,000. That's a lot of money for them back then, even when I think about it, and as poor as we were. But at the same time, houses before my mom and dad they were cheaper. I mean, back in the 50s, 40s, you could get a house for $4,000. So where's the cap? Where's the cap on the houses? So the thing I'm thinking is that unless they put a cap on Wall Street and tackle Wall Street, the same problems are going to keep happening generation after generation. And that's what the Occupy Wall Street movement was about. That's what the 2008 housing collapse was about. And that's what all this talk about Wall Street is we have a big problem with Wall Street. They've been putting it on in the media for a long time, and it's like it falls on deaf ears with the politicians. It sounded like there was some things that were in place with Congress, but then the bankers and the brokerage companies want to push back and say, well, we can't make a profit with our business. It's like, you shouldn't be able to make a profit. Not one of you should be able to make a profit. Well, then we can't get anyone to build houses. No one will build houses. Well, you know what? Other people will build houses. If you tell people that they're going to have a job and they're going to get paid, this is what confuses me. You have a job, you get paid, you're able to take care of yourself, you go home. You shouldn't be able to profiteer and price gouge off of the American public. Now, with the United States military, they don't make a profit. So why should construction make a profit? I think that I actually think that, and it really truthfully does seem like the whole economy is collapsing, and it is going to collapse. That's what I feel like, that in some strange way the whole infrastructure of the groundwork of the economy is being torn apart in many ways. Maybe not so much that everything will be torn apart, because realistically we need food and groceries, and so maybe some of the basic essentials will be left over, but the frivolous stuff, so we might lose bowling alleys, we might lose the entertainment stuff is going to go. I'm pretty positive of that, because someone said that about 4 years ago. That's what they were saying. They said, well, it's really not quite right that we have all this entertainment stuff going on and then people are homeless. And, I kind of thought the same thing myself, because I thought about the various times throughout my life where I'd been homeless. I just never thought of myself as being homeless. So it's that same thing of, well, you just change your mindset of thinking of, it's like, well, you think back and think, well, yeah, technically I was homeless then. So when I got married to my first husband, and he was losing his job at the place that he worked at before he joined the military, we were homeless. And I'd said that. We lived with his parents for 9 months before he joined the military. And then when he's done with the military, technically he is homeless again. And when I got divorced from him, I was homeless. And now I am again. And there's no help for me. And, so yeah, I mean, there is a bubbling up right now. I'm noticing on YouTube. I've gotten a few people, not a lot, but I think if I got a lot, I think they exist, but it would probably be really overwhelming for me if I got a lot of them, because then it's like preaching to the choir, and then I'm hearing about a whole bunch of homeless people talking about being homeless. And I tried that 2 years ago. There was I was looking at some homeless people, I think in Philadelphia and Los Angeles, and so there's like tent after tent after tent on the streets in the cities, and that's where they're at. And sometimes I've thought, well, why are they going there? Why do they go there? Because to me it almost seems like it's purposefully done, or that they have permission to do it, because I know a lot of big cities have some displays of street theater to try to capture the attention of the American public about issues. Well, what is it called? What was that thing called? The silent people, or the maybe it was the silent people or something like that. Invisible people. The Invisible People, I think, is the YouTube channel. And, so I can't watch a lot of that, because it's like I can write, and they're like, well, go talk to the pastors, and go talk to the politicians, and go talk to charitable contributions. So they all say the same thing. But then you're stuck in a circle of there's no help. So when you have no help, it's just pushing people out into the streets, and there's no solution. And then what? You're pushing disabled people out into the streets because we have inflation. And then it's like, well, where's the help from the rest of the American public, from the people who are actually taken care of? That was always on my mind, that I was thinking about all the time, is even when I was married, when things were good, it was on my mind, because, well, he was always reminding me. He'd be like, well, you should feel lucky you've got me. Eventually, he became the problem. But I was always aware of the homeless situation, because my son's being over in the Middle East, and they were dealing with their dad, and their dad kicking them out of the house when they came back from the Middle East. So I was well aware of my sons being homeless. And when I asked my second husband if my sons could come stay with me, it was more or less it was a no. That he didn't want them to be staying with me, because of the fact that he says, no, ain't no grown ass men going to come stay in the house with us unless they have a solid plan that they're going to get out and be on their own. So I knew what kind of problems that would cause if they came to stay with me. Now, if it was just me by myself someplace, I would have been able to help them. But when you're living with another man, and he is just adamant and set in his own ways, and he doesn't want to share, um, he doesn't want to help anybody, then, there's not much that can be done. And then he's like, and besides, if they stay more than 30 days, then they become a resident, and if you kick them out, you have to treat them like tenants. And, he had hostilities when I asked him about that. There was a time my daughter and my granddaughters needed help too, and he was making a big issue about that. I'm so glad that they didn't come to stay with me. I'm so glad none of my kids came to stay with me. I'm glad my youngest son never came to stay with me, because I would not have wanted him to be physically abused. So, yeah, anyway, I don't know. I think maybe I'm done. I've ranted enough. I don't really feel angry. Um, I really don't. No, I don't feel angry. Even though I might come across and sound that way. But okay, I'm gonna. I didn't really clip anything. I don't know what I want to clip. Is there anything profound that I could say here at the end? I just find it funny that nobody here. Yeah, it says, haha, that's true. If you think about it, cops should be grateful for criminals. They have a job because of us. They have a job because of the criminals. That is true. Cops have a job because of the criminals. Let's clip that little part.